welcome back to my show. Today is a really special episode as we have a brand new author on the show today. Her name is Padma Venkatraman. So she is the author of the book The Bridge Home. We're going to be doing a book talk on her book next week, but nonetheless, she is with us today. So let's give a round of applause. Okay, hi. So could you introduce yourself to our audience?
I certainly will. So first of all, Anika, I am not a brand new author. I am old. And my fifth novel, The Bridge Home, my fifth novel, Born Behind Bars. Look at me. See, I'm so old that I'm making mistakes. Born Behind Bars was released just on the 7th of September. So that book is brand new. I've been writing for children for a long, long time. And I've been published in the United States. My debut novel, Climbing the Stairs, came out 15 years ago. So that my debut novel was here in the world before you were, I think. My name is also Padma Venkatraman. Okay, so people often look at my last name and then they leave out the last syllable or something.
Sorry about that.
No, it's not a problem at all. But again, and I hope I'm saying your name right? Sometimes we have issues with...
No, you said my name right.
Looking at a name and wondering how to pronounce it. But anyways, I'm so happy and excited to be on your show and really impressed again with your enthusiasm, your persistence.
Thank you. And I'm super excited to start our conversation and learn some new things about you. So anyways, let's start. So the first question I have for you is that how long have you been writing, or when did you exactly start? Like, what was your passion or what was your inspirations to start writing?
So when did I start is easy to let you know. So I kind of started the minute I started my life, I want to say. I feel like I can't remember a time when I didn't write. And my mom says I started writing very, very, very young. And my first poem was actually published when I was 12 years old in an international journal. So it was called the Delhi-London Poetry Journal. I think, Delhi-London Poetry Quarterly. And I think it's still around. And it was a literary journal. So that was the first time that I had something published by a place that was not, a school magazine or something else. So that was very exciting for me.
That sounds amazing. So poems and stories are from two different aspects. So which one did you enjoy more?
I think I've been always attracted to both and always read both. And I think I've always written both as well. Although I have to say, I think maybe I wrote poems before I wrote stories. So probably that is the first thing that I did.
That's really nice. So normally this question would be asked at the very end, but I would love to know right now, what advice would you give to a writer working on their first book?
I am thrilled to hear that you are working on your first novel. The first thing that I would say is this: don't be in a hurry to get published. These days, there are so many platforms that you can use, but there's also so much of what I would call, potentially vanity publishing, or places that will say even websites on which might say things like, oh, I'll take your book and I'll publish it. People who are acting like agents who are not really agents, who may have their heart in the right place, but they may say things like, give me your money and I'll make sure this is published. And to me, and again, this may be because I'm old and it might be a throwback attitude, but for me, I can only speak from my point of view, right? A publisher needs to give you money. An agent needs to work only on commission. That means when you sell something, they get something. And
that's the truth actually, right? The publisher, in reality, the publisher is the one who gives you the money because you're working in a way for them, I guess.
Right. So I think that's very important. And I know that there are people who believe in self-publishing, but I would not go that route, especially for a first-time author. I would say perfect your craft. And, there's sometimes this great urge, right? to get published and to get your name out, to get it in print. But that's not as important as the actual process of writing. And also the product that you create has to be the best that you can possibly make it. So give it time. There is just so much. Your whole life, all your entire life is ahead of you. And so think about that. Take your time, learn the craft, polish the product that you have, and enjoy the process, because there's so much about publication that you don't control. The only thing you can control is the book that you actually write, right? You can try to make it the best that you can make it. And then as for the rest, it's like creating this little boat, the sailboat, and you make it the best you can possibly make it. And then you say, hey, I'm letting you go on this ocean, and I know and you know that we have no control, and hopefully you will go to good places.
Yeah, I think that's one of the advice that I think most authors would be giving to young writers and authors who are working on the first book. So that's a really great advice, and I would definitely use it, because honestly, when I am so keen on publishing, more on the quality, I focus on like the publishing part, which obviously comes in the end, that too when it's good quality. So I think that's some advice which even I would take.
Yeah, patience, process, and product.
Yeah, because without patience, there's no quality in the book. It's like you're rushing the process, which makes the end product not as good as what it would be if like there would have been more quality in it.
Yeah.
So what to you are the most important elements of good writing?
Whoa, that's a fabulous question, and there's so many things. I think for me, what speaks to me most is voice. So sometimes I pick up a book and I'm just immersed in the voice of a character. So voice and character to me are like so closely intertwined, and those two things are just really most powerful for me. Other things that are important to me as a writer are certainly seeing voices from communities that have been until now historically underrepresented or marginalized. You know what that means, right? So I think to me that's, go ahead.
So I guess my understanding of what you just said is like underrepresented are the cultures or the places that are like not shown much in books or in media. They're like given stereotypical roles. Like for example, in most of the time I've not read any book with Indian characters in it or any other culture which is not like English characters. So basically there are very rare books which are like that. So there's only a few books I've read like recently, like Real in the Blood of Nectar, your books, then the books which Sayantani Dasgupta writes. Those books are also few of the books I've read which are Indian, but those came in later, like in the 2020 to 2021, 2022, those kind of books. So I've not really read any in the past. So I guess that's what it means, that they're underrepresented because they're very rare.
Right, exactly. And now, thankfully, we have a whole lot of fabulous Desi authors, and many of them are women, and I think of them as my Desi sisters, my younger Desi sisters, because they've all come up. But when I was starting out, there were very few of us. There was Uma Krishnaswamy and Mitali Perkins. And then it was also, I think at that time, harder for even us to get our books published because the industry was a bit different. But I think although the industry has a long way to go, and we have a long way to go to accept people of color, to accept diversity in this country, and around the world as well, to accept systemic racism, which is something that's there in every culture. I think we have come a good long way thanks to We Need Diverse Books, which is a fabulous organization. And I think we have still a long way to go. So you're absolutely right, right? So voices or stories from communities, authors from communities that have not been, in the limelight, have not been front and center, in publishing and have often been given stereotypical roles. And also, usually that means authors who are not white, right? So all of those things. And I mean, for me, disability is something that I think of a lot and is important to me, as well as race and socioeconomics as well. So, people who have not come from privileged backgrounds in terms of wealth.
Yeah, even I feel that what you said, like voice, character, those are like one of the main things which molds your book or story into a perfect material. So voice is like dialogue, right?
Absolutely. Voice is not just dialogue. Dialogue is part of voice, but voice is like the way that a character says something. Okay, so it's like everything that's a part of the book. So let's say you have in Born Behind Bars, the narrator is Kabir, who is this boy who was born in jail, right? And everything he says, even what is not actual speech, so what's not in the quotes, but the way he looks at things, his worldview, everything about his narration is part of voice.
I just realized normally I start with the introduction of the author I'm interviewing and then the book itself. And this time I totally jumped to the question. So before I continue with the rest of the questions, why don't you introduce your book as well?
Which book do you want me to introduce, Anika?
I guess you can introduce Born Behind Bars.
So certainly. So Born Behind Bars, which I hope you will add to your reading list.
I'll surely will.
Thank you. Is a book about a boy who, it's based on a true story, as are all my books, as you probably know. And it's about a boy who is born in jail. And that's the element of the story that is based on the truth. I ended up creating from that nugget of truth a fictional story and a fictional character called Kabir. And he is in jail with his mom. He has never been outside jail. Until he's 9 years old, he dreams of going outside jail. And then suddenly the warden, who is in charge of the jails, kicks him out and sends him off onto the streets of Chennai city. And, she thinks that she's placing him with an uncle, but it's basically a guy who's pretending to be his uncle. And then soon he runs away from that chap and finds himself on the streets alone. And luckily for him, he finds a girl called Rani, who helps him. But Kabir's most fervent wish, his deepest longing, is to set his mother free. And that is something that even his best friend, Rani, doesn't believe can happen because Kabir is from a low caste and because he's really poor. And she thinks, how can we ever fight this system? How can we ever get his mother, who is innocent and has been sent to jail, how can we ever free her? So it's about Kabir's desperate longing to do that and how that drives the story forward.
That sounds like an amazing book. I'll surely add it to my reading list and read it as fast as I can. Like, get it as fast as I can, maybe from the library. I'm pretty sure it's there in our libraries already. So I'll quickly borrow it and start reading it as soon as I can. And I'm sure you all also should do the same thing. It sounds like an amazing book, and I'm pretty sure it's amazing from the inside as well. Her book, her first book was also really amazing. So if you have not read her first book, you should definitely read her first book as well. Anyways, moving back to the questions. What is your least favorite part of publishing, and what is your favorite part of publishing?
I think my favorite part of publishing is connection with kids like you, with young people around the world, with adults who are really wanting to do their best for children. And I think that to me is one of the most amazing things about publishing. Is that you get to meet so many people with so many different ways of thinking about issues, and that the friendships that you form, the mutual respect that happens, the amount that I have learned and also unlearned from all the people that I've met And that, I think, is to me the most important thing, that the connections that publishing has given me. So we're not talking about writing here, we're talking about publishing. And being published, one of the hardest things I think for me is maybe social media, in terms of it just being a very physical thing too. I have shoulder issues now because I'm getting older, and it's really hard for me to keep up with social media messaging and so on. And so I think that's one of the things that I find a little difficult these days, is all of that other stuff that happens. And that's when I make the connections, it's fabulous. But just being on social media is something that I'm unable to do the way that maybe some younger authors can.
I guess social media is just like a side thing. Some authors do not use social media. Some of them just have like a Goodreads platform in which like they post blogs and stuff like that, which they use as a social media way, but not exactly social media. And then some people do it with author newsletters and all of that, which is like just direct email communication with their fans through a website. So I guess for me, I think yeah, what you said was amazing, especially the part where you said your favorite part was of publishing was like meeting new people and building connections. I think that would be like one of the highlights of publishing.
Yeah, connection and community.
Because that way you make new friends, maybe like if you meet other authors or something.
Yes.
So which of the characters do you relate to the most and why? Like from your book.
I think in all the protagonists of all my books, whether it's The Bridge Home, or it's Born Behind Bars, or it's A Time to Dance, or it's Island's End, or it's Climbing the Stairs, all of my books, I think I have to have a connection with all the characters in some deep way. Often the protagonists have like a little seed of something that I see in myself, although they may be different from me. And I have to also really understand even the characters that I dislike. Because if I don't understand the characters that are kind of the villains, right, then they might become very flat, which means that they might become very sort of stereotypical, all bad villains. And I like to think that the majority of people, even if they are cruel, even if they end up doing very silly things, or even if they're violent, maybe they have something in them that is salvageable. And as a writer, I have to seek out that sort of salvageable part of anyone that I'm writing about, or any villain that I'm writing about. Villain is an awful word, but anybody who's negative in my books, I have to find that. So that's something that I always try to do. Obviously, the protagonists, the heroes and the heroines, it's easy for me to find everything I love about them.
Yeah, I guess finding that parts about your own characters is probably kind of hard, right?
Yeah.
How would you describe your book's ideal reader?
I think an ideal reader of my books is somebody who enjoys them. I don't really look and think, oh, this has to be this person, the age or the, I think sometimes we say, oh, there's this and this reading age or reading level. And I certainly do think that obviously a little baby cannot read a book, right? So there's that. There's a lower limit. And there are I tackle a lot of very serious themes, right? And I do that very honestly and very directly. So there may be a certain age before you can take one of my books, but that will also change from person to person. And I really don't think that there is an upper limit to any book. Sometimes we think, picture books are for babies or picture books are for kids. And I honestly think even a picture book can be enjoyed by people any age. And I say even because people think it's so easy, and it's not. A beautiful picture book is a fabulous thing that can be enjoyed by a person of any age, right? And a book that is a middle grade book, like The Bridge Home or Born Behind Bars, again, can be enjoyed by an adult as well. My previous books, which I think were classified as young adult, A Time to Dance, Island's End, Climbing the Stairs, all of those can also be enjoyed, I think, by anyone. So I don't think there's ever an upper limit.
Yeah.
And sometimes we also, we say silly things like we try to, say this book is for this gender or whatever, and I don't think that's correct either.
Yeah. If you could meet your characters, what would you say to them?
I'd say thank you. Thank you for coming into my mind. Thank you for coming into my heart. Thank you for coming into my life. And thank you for changing the lives of others, because I think that's been one of the greatest gifts that the Bridge Home has given me. It begins, as you know, with two sisters whose father is violent. And one of them decides that she's going to run away with the other sister. And then the two girls find themselves homeless on the streets of Chennai, right? So there's that connection between Born Behind Bars and the Bridge Home, which is that sense of homelessness and homeless children, or that issue of homelessness and homeless children. And so that powerful scene, which was so difficult for me to write, has touched the lives of many kids. The aspect of hunger that these children face has also touched the lives of many kids, right? And there's so many other things in that book, The Bridge Home, which ended up changing the lives of kids. So kids felt able to either reach out to me like you have, or, although you did it for a very different reason, they have me on the podcast, which is fabulous. But kids have been able to then reach out to me and say, hey, listen, I'm going through this difficult time. And then I've been able, luckily, to put them in touch with somebody else. So I've been able to be like the little in-between person to maybe put them in touch with a school counselor or someone else whom they are able to trust. And that makes me feel so happy, right? To be able to say the Bridge Home changed even one child's life, let alone so many others. That to me is one of the greatest gifts that my books have given me. And, with Born Behind Bars, I think there are so many children in the United States who have a relative who might be behind bars. And I think it's very important for all of us to recognize that those children need to be respected.
That's actually I love the way you answer that question. So you started off with how you would be, how do you react when you meet one of your characters, and how you explain what's the best moment about seeing them come to life, and how you connect with your audience, and when they're having trouble you help them and all. I think that's one of the best parts about you, that you love to write books about real life experiences. It's one of the books which I think this would be classified as realistic fiction, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so in school I had a 40 book reading challenge, and all the time I go over 40, so I have to always take an extra paper from the teacher. And right now, Born Behind Bars was actually on my list, but then my realistic fiction box got full, so I asked the teacher for another paper to put it in.
That's fabulous. I wish every kid would read as much as you do.
Yeah,
or listen to books. That's fine too.
Yeah.
Do you like to listen to books on tape?
No.
No? That's funny. Because some kids love that better, and I think that's equally valid, right? If you don't like to read for something, reason you can listen to.
I like the feel of books in my hand.
Yeah, me too.
I read ebooks as well. I don't have any problem with that, but ebooks work when they're such heavy books kind of ones. But when it comes to books which are interesting, or the covers are interesting, I like to see the cover in person. And actually hold the hard book and everything.
Yeah, I love them too.
And the smell of fresh new books is the best.
Yes, and you know what? there is a wonderful librarian called Mr. John Shu, and he also does the same thing. He takes his books and he opens them and he my daughter does that too. It's just so nice, right? A book can give you can satisfy so many of your senses. I love that as well. And these days, ebooks are, hard for me. Like I said, swiping and stuff is really difficult for me. So I tend to avoid that. But I'm glad that that's also an option for books these days, because I know some people prefer that. And I'm really grateful that my books are ebooks and Born Behind Bars and The Bridge Home and A Time to Dance. I actually read the audio. So that's very exciting for me.
Okay, so one thing just came to my mind. I just realized that Sudhamurthy was one of the first Indian authors, I think, in the world, right? Sudhamurthy.
Oh, sorry?
Sudhamurthy. Her books like...
Sudhamurthy?
Yeah,
I am not sure that... No, because there are the people who've been there before her.
Oh.
So I want... Yeah, many. Huh? So I don't want you to make sure... Sudhamurthy is actually quite new.
Oh, okay. I never knew that.
Yeah. Yeah, dig around and do some more research and you'll find that there are others also.
Oh, okay.
Several others, yeah. Some of whom were publishing or writing books and actually also publishing even when the British ruled India. Okay, so there are, yes. So you should look back and there are several others. Okay. I'm not going to give you the names because I want you to go do your research. I used to be a teacher too.
I love doing research.
There you go. Look, okay, dig a little bit deeper because there are, and we have to honor them.
Yes.
Okay. And it's so important to do that because you know what? It's so easy for us these days to say like, I was one of the first to do this. I was one of the first to do that, right? And there are people, I feel, who are excited by this thought, who maybe have not dug deep enough. And so none of us alive today, I don't think, are the first Indian authors in English by a long shot. Yeah. And so I think we need to respect and honor the South Asian authors, the Indian authors who were writing in English way before, and the Indian authors writing in any language, right? Way before we came over. And let's make very sure we honor that, because English is not the only language, although it is the language that I publish in. There are so many beautiful languages in the world. And in this country, also read, on We Need Diverse Books, that is a website where there is a wonderful interview that was done by a young, I shouldn't say young necessarily, but up-and-coming author, Tushanti Ponvira, about Born Behind Bars. Right now, that's on there, this interview. But if you go and if you search, there is an article that I wrote about how much winning the Walter Dean Myers Book Award means to me. And that, if you read that, you will have links, I believe, to some of the earlier works that were being done in or the earlier books that were being published in our country, by which I mean the United States, by indigenous authors. So Native American, if that's a word that may be more frequently used and maybe one that you're aware of, but I prefer the term indigenous because one of my friends says she prefers that term and she is from an indigenous community. So I honor that. First Nations, people of the First Nations. And there were authors who were Black who were publishing way, way, way before those who are living now and writing phenomenal books. So I think we need to be very aware of how much they have done for all of us authors of color today. And before I get off that soapbox, I just want to say that, speaking of Black authors, two authors that I respect so deeply are Jacqueline Woodson and Nikki Grimes. I hope you will look up their books as well.
Yeah, I've read Jacqueline Woodson's books before, Ever After, I think. Yeah, I have read that. I am still that's one of the current books I'm reading. It's an ebook. So I'm currently reading that. So sometimes what I do is I read two books simultaneously. That's why, but then it gets confusing, so I stopped doing that.
I see.
Anyways, now it's the end of the episode. I hope you had fun. any questions?
I had a fabulous time. I hope you did too. Thank you for reaching out. I'm glad we were able to make this happen. We tried a few times and couldn't, but it was an absolute joy to speak with you. So good luck with everything that you do in your future.
Thank you, and good luck with your book as well.
Bye.
Bye.